They criticize them for being a few months late. I go, man, that's, you take that win any day. In terms of these initiatives, all of them will have a legislative package this upcoming session. We're going to assign, we're going to run the legislative packages like a project. And so we're going to have a dedicated legislative affairs people. We're going to have dedicated communications people on these projects who are then going around and talking to all the legislators to try to make sure they understand and get their buy-in. So the hope then that that they would all pass in session. Realistically, one or two of them won't. Therefore, then we come out of session, we're just in full implementation mode. 2 or 3 of them we can start immediately. Like strategic sourcing, the bid's on the street right now to get some additional capability. We've got a core team of state workers that are already off starting to put together the planning work. We're going to be starting new competitive buying events in December. The real estate team's already off working on that project, and that's moving. The HR team's already designing. The fleet management team's already designing. The IT stuff's a little bit behind, so we're still working on. But I mean, we're moving on every one of these. And the thought being by next fall, many of these will be implemented, and the goal being by the end of this administration, we're in full deep implementation on every one of them. Will all of them be done? Probably not, but they'll be far enough along that even if administration changes, you still got to implement. That's my goal. And then if the administration does change, particularly the HR performance management stuff, then we'll keep pushing that agenda, and I think that's that will take we'll start all those projects, but this is a culture change thing. You don't change culture in a year. You don't change it in 2 years. It took 100 something. I don't know how long Florida's been around, but a long time, it'll take years before we get it all done.
What are some of the ideas you have for improving the contract and negotiation skills?
A lot. One is that we need a core team that is sort of cross agency, that is sort of the super experts. I was quoted in the paper calling them a cadre of gunslingers, but we want a group of people that we invest with these guys more than anyone else, who really become experts in negotiations and that type of thing. Second is we need to have a standard methodology of contracting. And today every agency decides independently how they're going to buy something, whether they're buying it through 287 or some other 3 numbers, or they use an RFPs or ITNs, and they all so there ought to be some standard rules of engagement of sort of how we contract, and some standard gates in terms of who we want to get involved, and then some standard roles and responsibilities on how a team ought to be organized. What I typically see is evaluation teams are usually the lowest, most indispensable or most dispensable people in the organization that you put on evaluations of procurements. And I go, well, obviously it's not that important if you put, a kid 3 months experience in the state on the evaluation team. So just a lot more awareness to how we contract and the process in terms of what we want to contract, and then a lot of focus on removing the political aspects of contracting. So, one is it needs to stay in the organization, not in the governor's office. It needs to be much more transparent and open in terms of what we're doing, and also a lot more upfront communication on why we're buying something, so that the vendor community all has a chance to participate in how we're going to buy it early on before we announce the procurement. The procurements have to be faster. We draw them out 6 months and a year. We can do these things a lot faster than that. We got to simplify the protest process. There's too much where people are just protesting just because they lose, and there ought to be penalties for that. So you just can't protest just because you're a loser every time. I can go on and on, but we got a whole list of
We had a book club recently with the Inspectors General, and we would meet every Wednesday. And I went through a couple of chapters each time, and we took Jack Welch's book, Winning.
Oh, yeah.
That's our first book. Given your perspective and some of the books that the governor's recommend his leadership team read, what would be a good next book for the inspectors general to do another book club?
I was going to say the Bible, but maybe that's a good question. I mean, winning's a great one. The Go is a great one. I like the Who Moved My Cheese years ago. There hasn't been a lot of great new government books in the last several years. I read Sonny Perdue's book recently on his transformation that he did during that administration, and it's amazingly aligned with what we're trying to do. So that gave me a little encouragement. But I think books about management and leadership. People often ask me, well, what's the biggest difference in you seeing government than private sector? And I always say it's leadership, and that the people in government want to have leaders who not only exemplify what they expect in the role that they serve, but also somebody who invests their time into the people and empowers the people. I mean, what I saw at DCF when I got there is, here's a bunch of great people, and they're all social workers, right? So they're all there to save the world, and but they've all been beaten down that you do this is all you do, and don't go outside that line. And that's exactly what you don't want to do. I go, if you're going to save the world, you got to go outside the line. So empower people to do the right thing, not what's necessarily in the procedure every time, and because maybe the procedure is wrong, and so. What I always see in just my leadership team is they're all personally challenged with the leadership techniques. Because once again, we don't invest in the managers. We invest in staff people and show them, here, you fill out this form, you key it in this way, and we do that training. But we don't invest in the leaders on how to be leaders. That's that kind of goes back to your other point about the turnover. And so any leadership training is good. Well, everybody, thanks for your time. I appreciate what you guys do, and I really do. I know y'all have an amazingly tough job. You deal with such sensitive issues, and at the same time, you deal with the very sensitive issues, but you're also dealing with a lot of the change programs and a lot of the process flaws that you see in your agency. So, I want to challenge you to really challenge your organization where you see things that just don't make sense in terms of the business process, and elevate that up to your management, and maybe we can elevate it up to some of our COO agendas, because there's not a lot of people by design in the organizational model that are sitting in your seat that can look at your organization holistically and question, why do you do it that way, and that type of thing. And my criticism of IGs and Chris is, you tell me a lot about what I don't do right, but we got to also figure out, okay, well, how do we get out of it? So how do we change it? So that's where you got to challenge your organization to really take on your recommendations and figure out, not just to accept that, yeah, this is stupid and we accept that, but do something about it. So thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you very much for your time today, Secretary. We have a nominal, and believe me, when I say nominal, gift for you. It's an umbrella with the logo of the Association of Inspectors General, and when you're out and about, we'd appreciate you advertising for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other announcements before we adjourn? All right, thank you very much for coming today, and we'll see you at the next lunch. And remember the training, the end of July and the first 2 days in August.